So UFC is back this weekend with a card on ABC, and as you guys know by now, the ABC cards are always stacked, and this is no exception. It's going to be a fantastic card. The prelims are on ESPN, the US main card broadcast is ABC, and it should be a very fun card. There's great prospects top to bottom on this card. There should be a lot of finishes. I'm really looking forward to it. But before I do get into my predictions, I do have my 3-day free trial, which you can get when you sign up to the UFC Picks Premium using my code ARTEM, and you can also get a 125% sign up bonus to BetUS when you use my link and code in the description. And with that being said, let's get into the first fight, which is Zhumagulov taking on Josh Van. Now, Josh Van's a good prospect. He was meant to be on Dana White's Contender Series this year, and Zhumagulov was actually meant to fight last week against Felipe Bunez, but Felipe Bunez has been pulled from that fight. According to Felipe Bunez himself, if you go onto his Twitter, he is going to get a sample double-checked by USADA, so who knows what's going on there, but Felipe Bunez himself has said he was pulled from the fight by USADA having to just double check something. And in steps Joshua Van. I mean, they've booked the fight 1 week later than Zhalgas was originally meant to fight, but it should be a fun one. Now, one thing I'm going to say about Joshua Van is he is very young. He is not even 22 years old yet, and he is making rapid improvements in his game. And the reason why I say that is because if you watch the fight against Paris Moran and then watch the fight against Cleveland McLean, it almost is like two different people are fighting. When he fought against Paris Moran had no issue taking him down whatsoever. He took him down twice in the first round, and then obviously Van ended up knocking him out with like a head kick and punches and just kind of a crazy flurry at the start of the second round. Paris Moran was out on his feet, man. And then he took on Cleveland McLean, who was a much bigger opponent than Van, and he was able to defend every single takedown and looked really good in that fight. Now, Joshua Van, you know, he is probably, I don't know, I would say he's probably mainly a striker, but he can wrestle offensively. He's pretty good at offensively wrestling. He kind of showed that off against Cleveland McLean, but he showed off his striking when he took on Paris Moran and knocked him out. He has got pretty good takedown defense, which has been improving. Like, as I said, he was taken down easily by Paris Moran, but he was able to actually defend all the takedowns by Cleveland McLean. And Zhalgas Zhumagulov, we kind of know what he brings now. He's been in the UFC for a while. He's had a lot of fights. You know, he's going to move forward, pressure forward. He's going to throw strikes, obviously. And he's also going to go for a little bit of clinch control and an occasional takedown here and there. But the main part of his game really is he wants to move forward. It is going to be interesting, a matchup for Joshua Van, though, because if you do watch his fights, he's actually quite small for 125 pounds. You know, he was significantly smaller than Cleveland McLean and Paris Moran in his last fights, and those guys were just way bigger than him. So it's going to be interesting seeing Joshua Van take on a guy that probably is going to be about his size, because Zhumagulov is listed at 5'4". I am actually very slightly leaning the Zhalgas Zhumagulov side in this fight, but I really wouldn't be surprised if Joshua Van finds a finish. In fact, this is probably a fight which I would wait on for my final prediction video, which I will do in a couple of days' time, because my mind could change on this with more kind of thinking. But I've done the tape study, and from what I saw, I actually do not mind Zhalgas Zhumagulov in the fight. Zhalgas is sitting at minus 188, and Joshua Van is plus 140. And most people are on Zhumagulov by decision. I think that's how he wins as well. Now let's move on to the next one, which is another short notice replacement fight. You've got Trevor taking on Chepe Mariscal. Chepe Mariscal, you look at the record, you might think he's not that good, but you've got to look at the guys that he has fought against, man. This guy has fought some really good competition. You got to go all the way back through. 11-0 as an amateur world champion in 2014, and then he lost to Gregor Gillespie. That happens. He fought Bryce Mitchell and lost. That happens. Carl Deaton III is now in the UFC, by the way. He beats Pat Sabatini. He beats Yusuf Zalal. He loses to Joanderson Brito, which is a fight I'll talk about later, who's in the UFC. Steve Garcia is in the UFC. Sean Soriano ended up in the UFC off that win. So Chepe Mariscal's fought good guys, and one thing I can say is Chepe Mariscal has a good background. I believe he's on the US national wrestling team. He's got a black belt in judo, and he's got a purple belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. But he does like to strike, and one thing that I noticed about Cub Swanson said, actually, in one of his LFA fights that he had, Cub Swanson said you can get the patient Chepe, or you can get the aggressive Chepe. I think if the aggressive Chepe comes out there and fights Trevor Peak, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I think he might beat him. I genuinely do. But if we get the patient Chepe, I think Trevor Peak might come through and knock him out. With that being said, Chepe, I would say for the most part is a striker. Like, If you do watch his fights, he likes to get it done on the feet. He managed to knock out Guilherme Ferreira, who, if you guys don't know, is a Team Alpha Male kickboxing coach and a very good kickboxer himself. And then when he fought Steve Garcia hurt him. This is what happened in the fight. Steve Garcia hurts him, literally knocks him out in the first 10 seconds. Like, Chepe is out, in my opinion. You could have stopped that fight. And Chepe just comes out of nowhere, pretty much with like a left-way revival, but just not, and manages to survive, but then he gets KO'd in the second round. The fight against Joanderson Brito, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I've watched a lot of fights. I think it's probably pretty fair to say that I've probably watched multiple hundreds of fights, maybe upwards of 1,000 fights. Like, I literally watched 30 fights on Saturday for the Bellator fight, the PFL card, also the LFA card, so I probably watched more than that. I've probably watched about 1,000 fights, at least. This is the most brutal knockout I've ever seen, and it kind of ruined my vibe. It was bad, man. Like, I probably wouldn't recommend watching. If you want to see a sick KO, watch this. But if you really don't, man. Chepe was out cold, and it was so bad. Like, the ref had to put him in the recovery position, and like minutes after Brito had knocked him out, he was still fighting his coaches. It was honestly one of the most gruesome knockouts and recoveries of a knockout I've ever seen in my life. And I've seen a lot of fights, and it was very concerning, man. Like, it was bad. And that's kind of like a KO loss that really sets you back. And then, you know, he got KO'd again by Steve Garcia. I'm seeing Chepe Mariscal take a lot of damage, man. I really am. And even then, on top of that, he is a featherweight taking on Trevor Peek at lightweight. And now to talk about Trevor Peek, what does Trevor Peek do? He comes forward and he throws bombs, man. I'm going to be honest, Trevor Peek's, his striking's not that technical. Let's be real. Let's say it how it is. He is coming out there and he is trying to knock his opponent out in the first round. He's not even trying to knock them out in the first round. He's trying to knock them out in the first minute. Dude, this guy's coming forward and he's bombing away. He's unbelievable. The pace that this guy puts on, he's throwing 125% into every single strike. If Chepe Mariscal survives the first round, he wins this fight. But I'm going to pick Trevor Peek to win this fight by first round knockout. He's going to be a bit bigger than Chepe. I mean, Trevor Peek's fought as high as welterweight in his past career. I mean, I'm just worried about that chin from Chepe, man. I've seen him KO'd multiple times, and that KO against Brito, a lot of people will never come back from that. So shout out to him for still going, but that was bad. And you can look at Trevor Peek, they're minus 188. I think if Jose Mariscal was a wider underdog, I would say he wouldn't be bad, but I wouldn't really bet this fight. If you're betting the fight, just bet Trevor Peek by KO in the first round, and then maybe you could throw like Chepe just money line to cover it. But yeah, man, I watched all the tape I could on Chepe. I was actually really kind of tempted to pick him, but just after watching him get KO'd, after watching him get clipped, because he does get hit often, I've got to pick Trevor Peek to just bomb forward and get something on him, man. But now we move on. Jamall Emmers versus Jack Jenkins. I've got Jack Jenkins as the underdog, and I was actually quite surprised when I saw the lines, because if you do look at Jamall Emmers in this matchup, he's minus 175, and Jack Jenkins is sitting about plus 140. I like the plus 140 underdog in Jack Jenkins. But here's the thing. I'm going to be real with you guys, and maybe you guys won't like my take at all on this, but I'm not as high on Jack Jenkins as everybody else is. I thought that Jack Jenkins looked great on Dana White's Contender Series, but he still had a bit to prove to me, because against Freddie Emiliano Linares, I know he's got an 8-1 record, but when I did the study for that Dana White's Contender Series fight, I come to the conclusion that Jack Jenkins was better everywhere. And he took Freddie Emiliano, dominated the fight, but it still took him 3 rounds to finish him, you know what I mean? And then he fought Don Shainis, and we know that John Shainis isn't UFC level. He actually just got cut from the promotion. And I'm going to be honest, that fight was probably a little bit too competitive. And now he's taking a step up in competition against Jamall Emmers, but I do think he passes the test. Jamall Emmers, I think, might be getting a little bit overrated from the odds makers because he's coming off that win over Hussein Eskabov. But let's be honest, man. Hussein Eskabov is way too small for featherweight to start with. He should be a bantamweight. And then on top of that, Hussein Eskabov, it was his first fight in like 3 years, and that record is padded. Let's be real. That wasn't... The Hussein Eskabov he's not a 23-0 fighter that you'd normally think of. You know, I can just see Jack Jenkins having the success on the feet, chopping away at the legs, which is what he's really known for doing. He's broken someone's leg in the past with leg kicks. I think he's going to chop away at the legs, kind of show off his kickboxing, and mix in the wrestling as well. Jenkins can do it all. We saw him out wrestle against Freddie Emiliano Linares. We've seen him showing us through striking against John Shanis, and just in the past as well. You know, he's beaten really good guys, using kind of everything in his game. I'm going to pick Jenkins by decision in this matchup. And now we move on to Randy Brown taking on Wellington Turman. Randy Brown is actually sitting, I believe, at only about minus 250. And I'm pretty confident Randy Brown is going to get this one done. He's about minus 250, minus 300 on one sports book. And Turman's about plus 175, plus 200, give or take, depending on where you are. But if you do look at this fight, I really do think Randy Brown wins this. Randy Brown's a borderline top 15 welterweight. And Wellington Turman is kind of in the middle of the bottom area of the rankings at middleweight. And if we guys know anything about the middleweights, it's that the middleweights just aren't as technical as the welterweights. And that's just true. Like, it just is, you know. And I just don't see Wellington Turman having the success that he's probably expecting moving down to 170 pounds. Now, did Wellington Turman look alright against Andrei Petroski? He did, but Andrei Petroski's not a guy that I rate too highly personally anyway. He's got a very good grappling game, does Turman. You know, he's a black belt in BJJ. But on the feet, Randy Brown, you know, and even in this fight, even though Wellington Turman's moving down, Randy Brown's going to be significantly longer than him. You know, he's 6'3" with a 78-inch reach, and he uses that well. He kind of keeps his opponents at bay from range. You know, you could argue that he did lose to, Chaos Williams, and he did have a close fight with Trinaldo. Well, wasn't that close, but he went the distance with Trinaldo. But I just don't see Randy Brown losing. You know, if Randy Brown gets taken down, I mean, Turman could sub him. That's how Turman wins. But I think Randy Brown keeps the fight at distance, stays at distance, maybe throws a little bit low volume. Maybe the fight's not that exciting. But I think Randy Brown's going to get it done by decision over Wellington Turman. I think Wellington Turman's just going to be outclassed, out-techniqued, and I don't think he's going to be able to get the fight to the ground, which is where he's going to do his best work. So give me Randy Brown to win this fight. And now we move on. Justin Tafa taking on Austen Lane. This is going to be a fun one. Let's have a little look at the odds. Justin Tafa is sitting minus 125 on Bovada, but on most sports books, he's about minus 180 to minus 150, and Austen Lane is about plus 110, plus 140. I like Justin Tafa in this matchup a lot. The problem with the Tafa brothers is if you take them down, they don't have that much off their back. You know, I do believe that Justin Tafa does have like a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, if that means anything to anyone. But Austen Lane's a kind of guy that is going to wrestle. He is going to come forward and he is going to try and take down Justin Tafa. This is his UFC debut because he did win on Dana White's Contender Series 8 months ago. And he did go on a crazy win streak after losing to Greg Hardy on Dana White's Contender Series a long time ago. But this is going to be interesting because Austen Lane is really big for heavyweight. He's going to have the reach advantage. But Justin Tafa, in my opinion, is just going to do what he does best, and that's going to close the distance, and he's going to land a big hook that's going to knock out Austen Lane. I think Justin Tafa wins this fight by KO in the first round. Justin Tafa, very good kickboxer, good kickboxing background. He doesn't quite have the glory background that his brother does, because his brother, Junior Tafa, was like a top 10 ranked glory heavyweight kickboxer, but they love to scrap, these Tafa brothers, man. They get KOs. I mean, trained by Mark Hunt, I believe, as well. They've done a bit of training with them. Tafa's a big boy as well. He cuts down to get to heavyweight. He's a big boy. He's a beast. And he's got that power, man. It's just that right hand go burr. You know what I mean? And I think it's going to land on Austen Lane. Austen Lane can win this fight if he gets takedowns. But I find it hard to believe that the Tafa brothers aren't working on takedown defense. And I think that Tafa is going to keep this fight on the feet and knock Lane out in the very first round. Now let's move on to Neil Magny versus Philip Rowe. I really like Neil Magny in this fight. I mean, I don't know if that's going to be a hot take or not. I feel like a lot of people might be on Rowe as the underdog, but Magny, for the most part, about minus 150. Rowe's about plus 110 as an underdog, and I do like the favorite in Magny. Magny's a guy that's been in the UFC for a long time, man. I think he's got something like 22 wins in the UFC. He's got 20 wins in the UFC. I was close. But Neil Magny's been in the UFC for a long time. And once again, we know what Neil Magny does. He's a tall, rangy guy at welterweight. And so is Philip Rowe. Philip Rowe is also a tall, rangy guy at welterweight. And to be honest, guys, I didn't really expect Philip Rowe to go on this win streak that he's gone on. It's actually been quite impressive for Rowe. 3-fight win streak over good fighters. You know, Orankowski at the time was undefeated. Maybe it hasn't aged well, but he still got it done. Knocked out Jason Witt. I mean, everyone else does that. But then he finished Nico Price in the 3rd round. Very impressive win there. But this is a big step up in competition, you know. Neil Magny's the kind of guy that you give to all of your prospects that you want to test. And I feel like Philip Rowe in this fight is getting the Neil Magny test. But in this matchup, I like Neil Magny. You know, he's a long, rangy guy, just like Philip Rowe. And he uses that range well. You know, he can keep fighters from the distance. He can go offensively wrestle if he has to. But I think what he's going to try and do is keep the fight at range, keep the fight at distance, and pick apart Philip Rowe. Maybe the fight even gets to the ground and Magny can find success there, because Rowe, for the most part, really is a striker. And Neil Magny's got good wins recently. You know, he's subbed D-Rod. You know, I would pick Daniel Rodrigues to beat Philip Rowe. MMA math doesn't work. Charles Oliveira proved that against Benil Dariush, because a lot of people were trying to MMA math me when I picked Charles Oliveira to win that fight. But it is what it is. I think Magny does win a decision. And we'll move on to the next fight. We've got Tabatha Ricci taking on Gillian Robertson. And the odds are very close in this one here. Tabatha Ricci's about -130. Gillian Robertson's about +100. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is everyone that picked Gillian Robertson to beat Piero Rodrigues, good job. I mean, good job. I mean, Gillian Robertson looked really good in that fight. And I picked Rodrigues to win that fight. So that's on me for having a bad pick. But yeah, Gillian Robertson's a really good grappler, but that's kind of all that she's got. Her striking isn't very good, and it is improving. Apologies. But her grappling is lights out. She's got some of the most submissions in the UFC's flyweight history, I believe. Most finishes in flyweight history, or something like that. It's interesting. She does have really, really good grappling. But so does Tabatha Ricci, and she's coming off a really good performance over Jessica Penne, where she looked really good. And, before that, you know, her fight against Poliana Viana wasn't very impressive. That was a pretty boring fight. But I'm going to actually side with Tabatha Ricci in this matchup for now. My mind really could change, but this is one of the fights which I think I'm going to have to give myself a little bit more time for that prediction in a couple of days' time before I make my final pick. But both of these girls, they don't have the longest reach for 125. You know, only 62-inch reach for Ricci, 63-inch reach for Robertson. Ricci's always kind of struggled with being a lot shorter than her opponents. She's only standing at 5'1", which is quite short for 115. And it's worth noting as well, Gillian Robertson's fought at 125 in the past, and this is our second fight at 115. So let's see how Gillian Robertson does. I think there's a good chance Gillian Robertson wins this fight, though, because she's a really, really good lights-out grappler. But I'm going to go with Ricci to kind of keep it safe. Maybe she keep it on the feet, and I think she wins a decision in this matchup. And the next fight is going to be Mateusz Rebecki taking on Loik Radzhabov. And in this matchup, I'm going to be picking Mateusz Rebecki. The reason why I'm going to be doing that is actually because of Loik Radzhabov's previous fight against Esteban Rilovic, where Loik Radzhabov, every time the fight was on the feet, honestly, Esteban Rilovic was hurting him. Every time the fight was on the feet, Rilovic would hurt him and then get taken down. Mateusz Rebecki, although you could say that his performance against Nick Fiore is definitely one that would drop his stock potentially quite significantly because it hasn't aged very well, Rebecki is a guy that is going to hurt you on the feet. And I can just see Rebecki going out there and hurting Loik Radzhabov on the feet and defending the takedowns because his wrestling is pretty good. Rebecki, a really good grappler as well, like a European BJJ champion, I believe, as well. And he looked really, really good on the Contender Series against Rodrigo Lidio. He kind of got that famous submission where, like, his legs were, like, super spread, the opposite of having hooks in at all. But the problem with Rebecki, though, is there's a few red flags. He is somewhat hittable on the feet, and his cardio is definitely something to be questioned after that fight against Nick Fiore, which he did dominate the fight, but he didn't look very good doing it against an opponent that we have kind of learned from now isn't UFC level. And Loik Radzhabov is a beast. Loik Radzhabov is a fantastic fighter. He is a guy that he lost to Rush Manfio, but he's a former PFL champion. He beat Zach Zane in submission. I believe that was at 165 pounds, though, if I'm correct. And then he fought Esteban Rilovic on short notice, but every time that fight was on the feet, Rilovic was hurting him. Now, Rilovic is a dangerous fighter on the feet. We're going to learn that at UFC 290 when Rilovic fights next, but I'm telling you guys, man, Radzhabov was getting hurt, he was getting hit, and I can see Mateusz Rebecki going out there and landing on Radzhabov. I've actually got Mateusz Rebecki to win by knockout in this matchup, and it's very interesting that everyone all of a sudden is picking Rebecki by decision when going into Dana White's Contender Series. This man was on one of the most insane finishing streaks you've ever seen from the guy that ended up on Dana White's Contender Series. So give me Mateusz Rebecki to win this fight by knockout against Radzhabov. Both guys actually don't have the best cardio, so I know people will probably pick Radzhabov because of Rebecki's somewhat bad cardio, questionable cardio, I think you could say. So is Radzhabov. Radzhabov's also got bad cardio, so it's definitely something to keep your eye out for. Tatsuro Taira taking on Kleydson Rodrigues. I'm picking Tatsuro Taira, and to be honest with you guys, this is just a really bad matchup for Kleydson Rodrigues. I'm just going to say it how it is. It's a terrible matchup for Kleydson Rodrigues. Tatsuro Taira is sitting at this fight. What are the odds? He is sitting at minus 350 up to minus 500 on some sports books. We can get Kleydson Rodrigues about plus 250. So you're getting crazy odds on Taira. But in my opinion, man, I can see Tatsuro Taira doing what he does best, getting the takedown early and finding a submission early. He's kind of got a very similar style to a really good Japanese prospect in Ray Saruya, where he'll get the takedown ASAP and then just work for a submission as soon after and get a submission early. Tatsuro Taira has been on an insane UFC run since he was signed recently, and to be honest, the UFC is really trying to build this guy up in the right way, and the reason why I say that is he has been getting some somewhat favourable matchups recently. You know, after going 2-0 in the UFC, he fought a guy making his debut in Aguilar, and he's a massive favourite in that fight. And now he's taking on Rodrigues, who's 1-1 in the UFC, but a really good up-and-coming prospect is Kleydson Rodrigues. But Kleydson Rodrigues is a great prospect in the striking. He's not really a grappler, man. I've seen Kleydson Rodrigues get taken down by lesser wrestlers and lesser grapplers than Tatsuro Taira in CJ Vergara, and I can just see Tatsuro Taira having a lot of success when the fight gets to the mat, because Kleydson Rodrigues, as I said, is a great striker. This guy's great. He's fun. He throws spinning stuff. He'll throw spinning back kicks. He'll throw spinning back fists. Fantastic striker when the fight's on the feet. But Tatsuro Taira is not going to entertain the striking. I guarantee you, within the first 30 seconds of the fight starting, Tatsuro Taira would have already shot for a takedown, and he would have likely gotten it as well. I know Kleydson Rodrigues probably does have a good ground game, but it's just not going to be the same level as Tatsuro Taira's offensive submission game, where it is just a very aggressive style. I don't even know if it's a Japanese sort of thing, but as I said, Ray Saruya, very, very similar style. Go for an offensive takedown ASAP, and then get a submission as soon as you possibly can. That's what Tatsuro Taira is going to do here against Kleydson Rodrigues. I think he gets a submission in the very first round. No disrespect to Kleydson Rodrigues whatsoever. He's a great prospect, but it is a terrible matchup for him, in my opinion. And now we move on to Cody Brundage versus Sedriques Dumas. This is another short notice fight. Cody Brundage, I believe, only accepted this fight a couple of days ago. So once again, only getting about a week and a half's notice. And in this matchup, Brundage is minus 120. Sedriques Dumas is minus 110. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm sorry. I sold you guys both tickets on Dumas. Now, maybe I did get you guys a pretty good underdog bet when I picked him to beat Mateusz Pinhas, but then I picked him with pretty high confidence to beat Josh Fremd, and we know how that went. Now, I have heard a rumor of potential foul play from the Dumas side, potentially betting on Josh Fremd in that fight to lose and then make some more money so he could train full time. But I'm not going to rely on that. Sedriques Dumas just did not look as good as I thought he was when he took on Josh Fremd, because going into the UFC or Dana White's Contender Series, this guy took on Aaron Hybar, who was a good fighter, and he was able to out-grapple him, he was able to outstrike him. He took on Mateusz Pinhas, who was a former Glory kickboxer, fantastic fighter, submitted him in like 47 seconds. And he's a great fighter, but I do think Cody Brundage gets it done. You know, Cody Brundage, taking this fight on short notice. He is on a bit of a losing streak right now, but he's lost to Mikhail Oleksiejczuk and Rodolfo Vieira. Like, these aren't guys to kind of like be embarrassed of losing to, you know what I mean? I can tell that Cody Brundage is a guy that just really, really wants to win. Now, you could say, well, everybody really, really wants to win, right? But I just got a different vibe from Brundage, man. Brundage seems like a guy that's just committed to winning. He seems like he really is really into this. And I think that Brundage is going to go out there and out-wrestle Sedriques Dumas. I think he's going to take down Sedriques Dumas and find success on the ground. And that's kind of the breakdown. I think Sedriques Dumas probably is the better striker. He's the better striker from range. 100%. But I think what's going to happen in this matchup, I think Cody Brundage is going to get in there and use that wrestling background, which he does have, and take down Sedriques Dumas, get the fight to the ground where he's going to be more comfortable. And we're going to see a little bit more wrestling and grappling from Cody Brundage in this matchup. So give me Cody Brundage to win the fight by submission. I will say probably in the second round. And with that being said, we'll move on to the next fight, which I am so incredibly excited for. David Onama taking on Gabriel Santos. And if you guys don't know who Gabriel Santos is, you might remember this fight, which he took on against Lerone Murphy on very short notice. And in my opinion, I thought he won that fight. And if you go to MMA decisions, the majority of people also believe that Gabriel Santos won that fight as well. And that is unreal. He took that fight on like 2 weeks' notice against 11-0 Lerone Murphy and had a really good account for himself. But Gabriel Santos is a special fighter, man. This guy isn't just your everyday prospect. He beat Jose Delano, who was a great prospect, 12-2. He took out Marcio Barbosa, who was 13-1 in that fight in an LFA tournament, actually, by the way. And he's beaten Elvis Brenner, and Elvis Brenner is in the UFC as well at lightweight. Now, David Onama is a good prospect. You know, he's a guy that a lot of people had very high expectations for. To be brutally honest, he probably hasn't fulfilled those expectations because he did lose to Mason Jones, but that was a short notice fight which he took on short notice, upper weight class as well, by the way. But then he took on Gabriel Benitez, knocked him out, looked really good combo as well to finish that fight. Beat Garrett Armfield, who took him on short notice, upper weight class. And then he lost to Nate Landwehr. And in that fight, he knocked down Nate Landwehr in the first round and pretty much finished him. But then he kind of blew his load and he was tired, man. He was gassed. He was done in the third round. He was finished. And Gabriel Santos is a guy that was still going forward in the third round against Lerone Murphy on short notice. And I'm telling you this, Gabriel Santos is not going to gas out against David Onama, especially on a full camp as well. Gabriel Santos is good everywhere. He's an aggressive Muay Thai fighter where he comes forward and he goes for takedowns and he's got aggressive grappling as well. And I'm going to pick Gabriel Santos to win this fight by finish in the third round. And if we do go to the odds in this matchup, you are looking at Daniel Santos at minus 230 and David Onama at plus 180. You might see a lot of people picking Onama as a big underdog at those odds, but I really do like Gabriel Santos. I think Gabriel Santos is a special prospect. And I think he's going to get a third round finish over a gassed out David Onama. It's going to be a fun fight. This could be a fight of the night fight, by the way. It's going to be an absolute banger for as long as it lasts. And now we move on to the main card. Moving higher up the main card. Brendan Allen taking on Bruno Silva. I apologize, guys. I'm recording this video after like a 5-hour live stream or something where I was talking non-stop. I do apologize. But Brendan Allen taking on Bruno Silva. I'm going to go Brendan Allen in this matchup. It's going to be interesting to see what the odds are because I haven't actually checked them yet for this fight. Brendan Allen's about minus 200 and Bruno Silva's about plus 130, plus 150, give or take, depending on the sports book. I like Brendan Allen in this fight. I think he's more well-rounded, and I think he can take Bruno Silva down. If you do look into Bruno Silva's record, this guy's got an insane finish rate, man. He's 20 wins and 20 wins by KO and 23 total wins. But if you look at that losses, man, no wins by submission, but 6 losses by submission. That's how Bruno Silva loses, and that's how Brendan Allen is probably going to win this fight. It's a weird situation with Brendan Allen's fight against Andre Muniz, where Muniz was doing better on the feet than anyone ever expected, and then Brendan Allen was out grappling him at times as well. It was a weird situation, but I think in this fight, I think Brendan Allen's going to take Bruno Silva down early and find a submission early again. I think he's probably going to find a submission within the first 2 rounds of this fight. Bruno Silva's going to be dangerous on the feet. Bruno Silva had a competitive fight, honestly, not even joking, a competitive kickboxing fight with Alex Pereira, which went the distance as well. Not a lot of people can say that they went the distance with Alex Pereira. And Brendan Allen, I think, is just not going to mess around on the feet because he knows there's probably going to be the worst striker in this matchup. So Brendan Allen's going to go there. He's going to go for wrestling. He's going to go for takedowns. And I think he's going to take down Bruno Silva. And I think he's going to work for submissions. And I do think he's eventually going to get one. Probably, I'm just going to go with another rear naked choke. He's on a 2-fight rear naked choke finish streak. I think he gets another one in the first 2 rounds over Silva. So give me Allen by submission in this matchup. And now we move on to Amanda Ribas taking on Macy Barber. You have to go with Ribas, man. Macy Barber's wins and losses are not aging well. Like, you look at Maycee Barber, like she won that fight against Miranda Maverick, which we all know that she lost, and then Miranda Maverick recently has kind of been losing. You know, she got out wrestled and out grappled by Erin Blanchfield, and she just got out wrestled and out grappled by Jasmine Desudavicius. Not a good look for Maycee Barber, who arguably lost, and in my opinion lost, to Miranda Maverick, and then she went on to beat Montana De La Rosa. Good win, to be fair, not that bad of a win. And then that fight against Andrea Lee, a lot of people thought that she lost that fight as well. Amanda Ribas is coming off, in my opinion, probably the best performance of her entire career when she took on Viviane Araujo and just looked great. She was able to do whatever she wanted to Viviane Araujo, really, in that fight. And I think she's probably going to be able to do the same sort of thing to Maycee Barber, who maybe is a little bit overrated. Now, a lot of people do dislike Maycee Barber because she is getting decisions she probably should be losing. And she also did just overhype herself in general, so people don't really like when you talk the talk but you can't walk the walk sort of situation. But maybe Maycee Barber is a little bit overhated, but I think Ribas does win this fight. I mean, I don't really know how Barber wins the fight. That's what I'm trying to think of right now. I think Ribas can out-grapple her and outstrike her as well. Ribas is about minus 180, Barber's plus 140. I genuinely think we could see Ribas out-grapple Barber and also outstrike Barber as well. I just don't really have much to say about the fight. So far, I think that Ribas is probably just better. So I'm going to go with Ribas. I think she kind of wins the fight wherever it goes. And she might even just go for takedowns, get on top of Barber herself, and do some grappling there, some offensive grappling. And now we move on to the main event, Josh Emmett versus Ilia Topuria. Normally I talk for ages about main events, but I'm really sorry, guys. My voice is really sore. As I said, man, I've coming up a live stream where I was just talking non-stop all day. And now I'm trying to record a video. I didn't think it was going to be this hard, but it is. But with that being said, Josh Emmett is taking on Ilia Topuria, and I am picking Ilia Topuria to win this matchup. Ilia Topuria is about minus 350 as a favorite. Josh Emmett's about plus 250. And that's crazy. And I'm going to open up a Josh Emmett breakdown every single time, the same way I do every single time when I bring up Josh Emmett. Everyone brings up Josh Emmett's one-punch KO power. This guy's got 18 wins, 6 of them by knockout, and he hasn't won by knockout since he knocked out Mirsad Bektic in 2019. 2019 was the last time he knocked someone out, and it was Mirsad Bektic, who's not even in the UFC anymore. Yes, a win over Lamas is a good win by KO, and Michael Johnson as well. But dude, like, this is 3 wins by KO in the UFC. This guy's got 9 wins in the UFC, 6 of them by decision, 3 of them by knockout. Can we stop this Josh Emmett has one-punch KO power, he's going to put anyone out sort of situation? It's not true, man. It's not true. He can't do it anymore. He's 38. But anyway, with that being said, Josh Emmett, you know, just got beaten up by Yair Rodrigues. There's no shame in that. A lot of people think that Yair Rodrigues is going to be one of the toughest test Volks has had recently, so no shame in losing to Yair like that. But Ilia Topuria, man, this guy's just different, you know, like he is. You know, when he fought Bryce Mitchell, I'm going to say it how it is, and a lot of people may not like this take, but Bryce Mitchell was scared, man. Like, Topuria was hitting him with good shots, and Bryce Mitchell just didn't want it anymore. He gassed out in the second round and then got finished by Topuria, but let's be honest, Bryce Mitchell, as soon as he started getting hit by Ilia Topuria, he just didn't want it. He gassed out completely in the second round. He was getting hurt. He was getting beaten up all over the place. And he ended up getting submitted by Ilia Topuria after Topuria hurt him in the second round. Yes, he got a pretty bad performance against Joey Herbert, to be honest. Got KO'd pretty much. Come back and then won by KO. KO'd Ryan Hall, which is probably like the fight which really put him on the map. But the way that Ilia Topuria is just able to just completely manhandle these guys that he's fighting, and don't get me wrong, Bryce Mitchell's a really, really good fighter and a really good prospect, and he's 15-0 and highly ranked as well for a reason. But jeez, I'm so sorry, guys. My voice is buggered. But anyway, I think Ilia Topuria wins this fight. I think he can out-wrestle Josh Emmett. I know Josh Emmett does have a pretty good wrestling base, which he can use, but Ilia Topuria is going to come forward, he's going to throw heavy, and he's going to offensively wrestle and grapple against Josh Emmett. Now, the problem is with Topuria, we have seen him slow down before towards the end of fights. How good is his gas tank? Can Ilia Topuria's gas tank hold up over 5 rounds? We're going to find out. I don't think Josh Emmett's going to be that easy to finish. I know he did just get finished by Yair Rodrigues somewhat easily, but let's be real, man. I really can see Topuria going out there, maybe not finding the finish on Josh Emmett, and Josh Emmett's going to be there for all 5 rounds. So Ilia Topuria, I think he's going to have to find a finish in the first 3 rounds if he wants to win this fight. And I am going to pick Topuria to win this fight within the first 3 rounds. It's going to be interesting though, seeing the striking on the feet, because Josh Emmett is a good striker, even though I do say that he's not. I don't think he's as powerful as people make him out to be, personally. But I think we're going to see Ilia Topuria look to use that wrestling, look to use that grappling, and find success in that fight. And with that being said, I am going to pick Topuria by submission. Yeah, I'm going to pick him by submission. Not going to pick him by knockout. I'm going to pick him by submission in the first 3 rounds. And my voice is done. My voice is done. I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to have to end the video here. With that being said, though, I will do another video in 2 days' time where my voice won't be like this. And I'll see you guys then. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.